My name is Polly Stebbins and I'm from Brighton Hove City Council, and I'm going to do a presentation here on a brief that I was set on a cycle security film, but you'll learn more about that through the presentation. So my manager, Rob Dickin, commissioned a film about bicycle security because a lot of people are losing their bikes through theft in the city. And so through our Access project, which is running over 3 years, one of the things that he wanted to come out of it was a bicycle security film that we could put up on our council website and then share it with people across the city. Quite a wide range of people were proposed for this project, but I'll go into a bit more detail as we go through about who the target audience should be. Right, well, why should we do something about bicycle security? In terms of figures, 290,000 bikes were stolen in the UK in 2018. So that's a lot of bikes that are stolen. And a lot are being stolen from urban areas like Brighton and Hove. And 1 in 50 households who own a bike are victims of theft each year. Now, looking at who the most likely people to be the victims of bike theft, this data comes from the Office of National Statistics. The most likely people include full-time students, which we've got a lot of in this city, very big population of students, and younger adults, 16 to 34, people who are on lower incomes and of living in higher areas of incivility and urban areas. So it's economically disadvantaged people are far more likely to be victims of cycle theft. Now, when and how do you think cycle theft is happening? Would you say day or night? What do you think? Day or night? Weekend?
I'd
Day,
say
I would say.
daytime.
Daytime, okay. Any days of the week or weekend?
Weekdays.
Weekdays.
Okay. From home, away from home, where do you think it's most happening?
Away, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you think most bikes are locked or unlocked when they're stolen?
Locked.
Okay, well, let's have a look. So night or day? So most are happening at night. So that's something we should focus on in our film. Weekend or weekday, it's very similar. So we probably don't really need to focus too much on that. It's happening at very similar numbers during the week and the weekend. Now, 61% of bikes are being taken from home, from private or semi-private locations. So the rest are being taken away from home. So that's something else we do need to focus on, that almost 2/3 of bikes are actually being stolen from your home. But it's not necessarily in the home, but it's places like gardens, garages, places that aren't necessarily attached to the house. And then locked or unlocked, 55% are unlocked. So there's a real problem with people not locking their bikes in places where they think they're safe and then they're being stolen. And these are some reasons about why people are not locking their bikes. So it seems that most people didn't think about it or didn't get round to it, or they thought they didn't need to lock their bikes. So we need to focus on these. Now, what are the effects of these stolen bikes? What's happening to people after they have their bikes stolen? Any idea? But how many people do you think might not replace their bike?
Well, if like you said
low,
in the beginning,
yeah.
it's low income, probably
Be quite a
not
high
that.
proportion not
Okay.
replacing.
Okay. we've got 20% of people aren't replacing their bikes. And actually, there's a lot of people that give up cycling as well. 24% are giving up cycling after having their bikes stolen. And then a lot of people have a fear of theft. And the statistics are showing that 68% of people cycle less because of fear of theft. Now, in terms of our Access project, one of the main themes of our project is to encourage cycling. If bicycle theft is happening, then it's a real problem for our project in terms of how successful we are with encouraging cycling. So if we can tackle theft, we could have a big impact on people cycling. Now, my initial ideas for the film, I looked at many other films about bicycle safety. They're quite dry. They're very much focused on how to lock your bike. Now, if we look at the statistics, people aren't locking their bikes, so we need to encourage them to lock them in the first place before even teaching them how to lock them. So I do want to have an element to focus on how to lock, but I want people to know where they should lock their bike, when they should lock their bike, and the fact that they should lock their bike wherever it is. Now, in terms of the premise behind the film is that bikes are important to us. They take us places we need to go to. They take us to our workplace, to college, to school. They take us on adventures. And the bike in my film is the main character. And there's a film, I'm just going to see if I can show you briefly a little bit of a film that I really liked from, it's a Dutch film, and it's about the day in the life of the bike, and it's from the point of view of the bike and how it spends its day in the city. We're not going to have any sound on this, I think. I'm only going to show you the first few frames of it. And this is the bike, comes out, and it goes around. It's not all from this viewpoint, goes around the city and has different things happen to it through the day. It's a really good film.
Is it a film or a commercial?
No, it's a YouTube film. By a couple of Dutch people. It's quite, and it gets stolen, it gets borrowed by people, and lots of different things happen to it. Now my film, I've got you the storyboard. I'll talk you briefly through it, but it has got a voiceover, which is the bike, but it's basically saying, I'm yours, I take you places, you need to look after me. The first few shots will be of the bike, then we're going to have some people taking their bikes from different places, including a bike rack, a shed, a garden, and then the bike takes them to the places they need to go to. And then we move on to some more places where your bike might be kept. A shared hallway, a garage, we're on to page 2, and there may be a lamppost or railings which are a bit hidden away. And then the bike says, I'm taking on adventures to the beach, to see friends, to the woods. And then we start to focus on locking the bike. And we're going to have a shot of the one negative shot is of my bike rack on page 3 with a wheel. That's the only kind of negative aspect I'm going to show in this film. I want to be very positive and showing how the bike is really part of your life and really important to you, because when people lose their bikes, it's a very big thing, and it can really destroy your life. You might be able to not go to work. So now we're going to go focus on some of the places that people would store their bike, and just focus on certain aspects of this. You need to use locks, preferably good locks. You need to lock the frame, through something secure ideally. Always try to lock at something solid. Lock your bike if possible. If you're locking your bike inside, even then, lock your bike, especially in places like a shared hallway or somewhere which might not be locked like a shed. So there's going to just be some shots about showing the people from the previous scene locking their bikes in appropriate places with appropriate equipment. And that takes us through to the end of the film. So these were the things, I've covered those, but those are my main things I'm going to cover with the last few shots in the film. But it isn't really these are the things it's going to tell us from the very end. But the idea of this, our call to action, is that you have the best locked bike. If you have the best locked bike around, your bike will not be taken. It's the bikes which aren't locked properly or aren't locked that get stolen. So the idea is that your bike is not going to be stolen. And I've heard this from several people. For example, I talked to a colleague who works for a cycle storage company called Cycle Pods, and their main thing is that you have the best locked bike. Might not be very nice for the other people, but and part of my campaign, within my report I've said a lot more about campaign for this, and I'd like to have a campaign where actually we put rosettes on bikes around the city and take photographs of them. Not where we can see whose bike it is or where it is, and put these up on social media and see if people can recognise their bikes. And if you've got the best locked bike rosette, then you can win something, for example. And there we are. So, have you got any questions?
I do have a few questions. That was an excellent presentation, by the way. It was very visual, and I love the storyboard.
Could I ask a question about the social media? If you talked about the target audience.
Yes.
Being full-time students and below a certain income bracket. What is there a particular social media that group are more likely to use?
Well, I suppose you could feed into what people at the university are using, for example. Yeah. It does depend on people's backgrounds and ages, obviously. There's a lot of people who are using Instagram at the moment. Yeah. Facebook's quite widely used, and Twitter not so much, but more for professional people.
Okay.
But Twitter is used by people as well.
But Instagram's the main one.
Instagram, yeah, and Facebook, yeah. But we need to do some more research into how people in Brighton Hove are using social media and target it through that way as well.
How long is the film?
The film's just going to be quite short. It's about 2.5 minutes. 2.5, 3 minutes.
And where will this film feature?
We're going to put it on the council website as a main link for places like social media.
We have a...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we've got this new set. This room at 2.
That's right.
No, it's fine. We'll come out.